Okay, I'm back for 9 and 10. And I may just keep going today, I don't know. I got some quiet time, so we'll see. Alright, 9 is the last straw. I didn't plan on getting pregnant again. Not this time. Not in the middle of chaos. Not with a man I barely knew. Not when I was finally starting to catch my breath. But there it was, 2 lines on a stick staring back at me like a cosmic joke. Because I had already made plans, talked to the doctor, and even had went as far as pre-registering at the hospital to have my tubes tied. But God had other plans and was laughing at the ones that I had tried to make. I cried, of course I did. I wasn't supposed to be going through this. I started seeing someone. He wasn't the father. He knew that. I knew that, but I stayed with him anyway. Why? Because he didn't run. Because he didn't leave me when I told him. And in the broken aftermath of trauma, that felt like love. He was well off. He had money, charm, all the usual lures. But underneath, there was something sharp, a coldness. He wasn't physically abusive at first, but mentally, that man had a PhD in control. Told me no one else would want a woman like me. 3 kids, your baggage. You're lucky somebody even is looking at you. And the thing is, I believed him. So I stayed. I let him dig into my self-worth until it was paper thin. I let him make me so small, so invisible, desperate for just scraps of attention. And when the baby came, he saved me, and I didn't even know it. I went back to work 2 weeks later because bills don't care about maternity leave. And he sure as hell wasn't going to help me. My ex-mother-in-law stepped in and cared for my new baby boy. She was more of a mother to me than half the people who had that title. Even after the divorce, she said, "You're mine. I don't care what the paperwork says. That woman loved me when I didn't even love myself." And I clung to that because the man I was with, he got worse. The emotional bruises turned into real ones. The handprints on my arms, the finger marks around my neck, the blood on my pillows. But still, I didn't leave. Because he'd cry, he'd say he was sorry, because I thought maybe it was my fault. But one day, I made a move without him. I bought a house. A little piece for me and my kids. My name, my money, my decision. He lost his mind. But something inside me was changing. I wasn't scared this time. I was done. That house, it wasn't just shelter. It was a line in the sand, my declaration that I would not die in somebody else's chaos. I was still drinking, still numbing, still not quite healed, but the ground under my feet started feeling like mine. Chapter 10, The Call That Broke Me. It was sometime after midnight. You know, the time of night when bad news like that likes to knock. My phone lit up, and I didn't even have to answer to know that something was wrong. It was my dad. His voice didn't sound like his voice. "Can I come stay with you for a little while?" he asked. No pride, no edge, just quiet. I said yes before I even finished his sentence. When he arrived, I saw a shell of a man I used to cling to like a life raft. He'd always been covered in tattoos, rough around the edges, with a soul that had been through hell and made it back half the time. But this time, he wasn't going to bounce back. Stage 4 liver cancer on top of COPD. He was already living on borrowed time. He couldn't take pain meds because they'd slowed down what tiny bit of breath he had in his lungs. He walked around with a plastic oxygen tank in his face. I watched him die in pieces. He stayed for a week. Me and the kids soaked up every second. I pretended not to notice how much weight he had lost, how tired he looked, how the light in his eyes flickered every time he coughed. Then he wanted to go back home to Texas. I didn't want him to go, but I could feel it. He was going home to die. Weeks later, the phone rang. Another late night call. My aunt, the one who had raised me, was being rushed into emergency surgery, and my dad was back in the hospital. This wasn't a drill. I drove through the night like I had fire eating at my heels. When I got there, my aunt was already on life support. The cancer had spread too far. She died that same night. Quite undramatic. Just gone. But there was no time to fall apart because my dad wasn't even well enough to attend the funeral. He was already fighting his own fight. The doctors told me 3 to 6 months. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake someone and make it not true. But life doesn't care how much you've already lost. It'll keep dealing blows until you're down to nothing. I went home after the funeral. I had my son's birthday coming up. My youngest was turning 3. And I had to be okay to smile and pretend so that they could not see me shattering on the inside. I played the part, and then I packed my bag and drove straight back to Texas.